r/AskReddit Waiters, what Valentine Day disasters have you witnessed? I saw a couple have a full-blown argument in the middle of the restaurant. The woman stood up, took her ring off, threw it at him, and walked out. The man continued his meal, had dessert and then paid the bill, left a pretty big tip for the inconvenience and left. She does this sometimes. Sorry everybody. I once ended up in a burrito place at 2 AM talking with a guy who was just casually managing his fiance's drunken breakdown because she accidentally ordered peppers. The guy seemed tired. Well, it was 2 AM. Something tells me that's the least of his worries. My girlfriend likes to pick fights with Uber drivers when she's drunk. My ex used to punch random people in the face when she was drunk. Then she'd act like it was funny and no big deal. When she sobered up the next day, she busted my lip and gave several guys and girls black eyes and busted lips. Ducking psycho. This made me think of that post on one of the subs, either am I the butthole or relationship advice, where Op's wife had gone a little batty and was talking in a baby talk to everyone, not just their child. Op's reaction was basically your comment up until the point that he just finally got fed up and left her at the restaurant. It wasn't disastrous for the couple as much as it was the restaurant. I used to work at a small southeastern franchise restaurant. It wasn't anything you could mistake for upscale. We had someone call in and ask if we could fry the ring he was planning to propose with in a hush puppy. Extremely weird request, but we said sure. They come in to eat with their families. She gets her order of hush puppies, doesn't choke on the ring, and seems excited enough. Stayed at the table for about 2 hours total, and chatted. They dined and dashed. Not really a disaster, but this guy came in and said he was waiting for his date. He stayed for 5 hours waiting, and she never showed. He eventually ordered 4 for himself, and asked that I remove the other glass of water from the table. He said it was their first date. Yeah, I've been there. Like last week. Feels bad. Damn, why would you wait for 5 hours? I'm out of there after 30 minutes. I'd wait an hour. She could be on daylight saving time. I got dumped on Valentine's Day last year. I'm a waiter. Damn, you got served. That was really out of order for her to do. The server becomes the served. I was a waitress many moons ago, and two couples spring to mind. The first were an older couple who were dressed nicely. They were polite and cordial to me, but not overly enthusiastic or friendly. They were at the table for a little over an hour and a half, and we didn't see them say one word to each other during that time. Every time I went over to their table, the atmosphere felt like I'd walked straight into an argument, but they weren't speaking or looking at each other or anything. It very quickly became awkward as the second couple was meant to be having a proposal dinner. The guy had rung to book a table and had let us know he was going to propose during dessert. He'd given the ring to kitchen staff so we could bring it out with a cake, and he'd got some balloons and streamers too. Anyway, he walks in a couple of steps behind his partner. Everyone has big grins for them both, but he grits his teeth and shakes his head, surreptitiously dragging his finger across his throat pantomime style. Great. Oh, and lucky me, they're seated in my section. It's obvious she was bloody furious with him about something. She spends the first half of the meal seething quietly, and the second having a constant pop at him. While she was in the loo, the manager made me double check he didn't want us to bring the ring out or anything. Duck, no, was his response. I felt really bad for him. She really was mean. Oh man. I'm just imagining if some wires had gotten crossed and they'd brought the ring out anyway. How awkward would that be? Or the guy changes the plan. They bring out the ring, say here's what you're never getting, and then hand it to him. He pockets it, pays the check, and leaves. Brings the ring out, proposes to the male waiter, who gets giddy as a schoolgirl, and they skip off together for a happy ending. Not a total disaster, but still not good. Had a table of 2 people, probably in their mid-40s last year. Took 45 minutes for this couple to get their entrees due to our kitchen being way too slammed. When they were dropped at the table, they immediately asked for to-go boxes because they told their babysitter they'd be home by a certain time. I overheard the wife say, well, I guess this is why we don't celebrate Valentine's Day. The worst part was that they weren't angry, just very sad. My personal feelings about dining out on Valentine's Day aside, I felt so horrible that this couple clearly had put in an effort to have a nice night with each other, only to have it go that way. We calmed their meals, BTW. I was the disaster. I was a new server. And horrible. I dumped an entire tray on the floor, my bad. As a newish waitress, I was helping work a birthday party. Turned out it was for an acquaintance of mine, and knew them fairly well. It was time to bring out their ice cream cake, and as I was bringing it out on a tray one-handed, I suddenly tripped, and the cake was sliding forward. Apparently my body was already prepared to save this cake from imminent destruction, and my free hand caught the cake by the top. So it was sandwiched between my hands. I was absolutely mortified and nearly in tears. The party told me it was okay, the cake was saved, and they just cut the top off. But this event still causes me to lay awake at night. Hope this made you laugh, because I haven't told a soul about this, haha. I made a reservation last week. Spiel, which ended up making him look bad when I responded with, we've been booked for 3 months. I don't think it was as bad as my Easter brunch story. Woman calls us a week before Easter wanting to confirm her reservation for the patio. We are in a hotel and open up our ballrooms for the big holidays and do everything in rounds. I told her we didn't allow for anything outdoors because of that reason. She responded with, well, your manager said we could, and it's 15 people. So I asked her which one, of course no name, and finally say, do you mean Maya? Who was the director of F&B? She says yes. Of course. So I hand the phone to her, and she shuts it down real fast. The woman throws a huge fit, gives us some sob story as to why she needs the reservation, and we still tell her we will call her if we have any cancellations. The woman still shows up the day of, says it's confirmed. We try to squeeze her in, but her 15 is now 25. We make room because we had a cancellation, but because everything is sat in rounds, she only has an hour to get in and out. Half her party isn't there, and we ended up having to kick them out before everyone could eat. She was livid, but we explained that because she had no reservation we don't owe anything to her. This is a $50 per person brunch with bottomless mimosas and ducking king crab legs. It's not a cheap experience. She walks out without tipping. It was a disaster. Jesus Christ, I'm surprised you actually gave it to the dumb itch after it was obvious she clearly made her reservation story up. Tell her that chillers would be happy to have her, and hang up. Nothing too scandalous, but I'd say happy Valentine's Day pretty much to any couple that sat at my tables. Occasionally one of them would say something like, we are not dating. Some of the times, the other person would give a look that pretty much confirmed that they both had very different interpretations of what was going on. There's an episode of 30 Rock where they mention that going to IKEA is a big stress test in relationships. That has nothing on going to a restaurant on the busiest days of the year, particularly Mother's Day and Valentine's, especially when it's on a weekend. I'd say 99% of the disasters I've seen have just been normal run-of-the-mill issues where couples realize they have different levels of patience and one person undoubtedly gets aggravated with the packed restaurant and their time is ruined. Ha 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 ha. Had to laugh at the Ike comment. One of the biggest fights we ever had was in an Ike. We got past it, but man, it was a doozy. We didn't want to make a scene, so we were whisper yelling. I'm sure we didn't pull it off though. Worked at this Japanese restaurant and had one guy comes and orders a bunch of sushi to go, says he's going to surprise his girlfriend. He comes back like 30 minutes later and asks us if he could return some of the sushi. Apparently his girlfriend has a seafood allergy and couldn't eat anything he ordered, and she was mad he spent so much money, so she made him come and try to get some of it back. Obviously we couldn't really give him a refund on the food, but we made him a chicken hibachi on the house, so he could have something to take back to her, because we felt bad for the guy. He proposed, she said no. He cried and tried to change her mind for 20 minutes while she sat there stony-faced. She finally got up and walked out. He paid and left in tears. Not a waiter, but I was a pastry chef at this big resort in Cape Cod. We got a special order from this guy who was coming in for his anniversary, Valentine's Day. He wanted his dessert to have, "Will you marry me?" written on it, so he could pop the question when it came out. He called ahead to the front and back kitchen, even came in himself that morning to make sure it was good to go. The whole crew was behind him. We had cooks all night coming in the ask if it had happened yet. I wrote the inscription on the plate and dressed it to the nines with gold leaf and expensive chocolate. I'm taking a picture of the plate just before it's set to go out and notice our head waiter come in with a weird look on his face. He says plainly they don't need it. She broke up with him before the entrees hit the table. Reddit eyes. Scouring Reddit to bring you the best commentary. Like and subscribe for more. See you soon, fellow Redditors.